I'm Hope Kleine, SDSU Extension Health Education and Food Safety Field Specialist. Today I'm going to be talking about pressure canning. While pressure canning can seem daunting, by the end of this video it's my hope that you feel more confident in your pressure canning abilities. Pressure canners are used to preserve low acid foods, and low acid foods would entail different produce items like carrots or squash or green beans. And also the meats, like if you're canning cow, venison, chicken, anything like that. Pressure canners are important to utilize for low acid foods because they have meat yeasts, molds, and bacteria that can't be killed off unless they reach a temperature above 140 degrees. So while a water bath canner heats food to 212 degrees, it's not quite high enough for low acid foods. The pressure canners are able to heat food up to a temperature of 240 degrees because they utilize the steam that builds up in the pressure canner to kill off that harmful bacteria. If you were to water bath can something that should be pressure canned, there is a significant increase in the risk of botulism being present in your foods. There are two types of pressure canners. There's dial gauge pressure canners and weighted gauge pressure canners. Today I'm going to be working with a weighted gauge pressure canner. And how the weighted gauge works is that you have a weight, and they all will look a little bit different. But for this pressure canner, I have 3 different weights. So the little weight is 5 pounds of pressure, the middle weight is 10 pounds of pressure, and then the largest weight is 15 pounds of pressure. What you would do after you have gotten your canner going, which we'll show in a little bit, you'll use the 15-pound weight and put that on top of the vent port here. With a dial gauge pressure canner, you would have a dial screen up on the lid of your canner, and it would have a needle that would indicate what pound of pressure you are at. With dial gauge pressure canners, you need to get them tested for accuracy every year. For the purposes of just showing how to use a pressure canner, today I'm just going to show you how to pressure can water. So I'm just going to be filling some jars with water and placing them in the canner. A benefit to pressure canning water is if you have a new pressure canner, it can get you more familiar with it, or maybe it's been some time since you've pressure canned, so you just want to refresh your memory. But what you're going to do is you will read the instruction manual of your pressure canner, and you'll start off with filling it with the appropriate amount of water. Some pressure canners will tell you to fill the canner with 2 to 3 inches of water, or it might tell you to fill it with 2 quarts of water, and then to get that water warmed up while you're preparing your food. So I have placed 2 quarts of water in my canner, because that's what this instruction manual says, and now I'm going to turn up my heat to about medium so that water can start to preheat. When canning, you need to decide if you want to hot pack or raw pack your foods. If you're going to raw pack, that is just when you wash and prepare your produce as noted in the recipe and pack it into the jar. When you hot pack, you prepare your produce as necessary, and then you actually cook it in boiling water for a short amount of time. The benefit to hot packing is that your food will shrink a little bit in that cooking process before you put it in the jar, which allows for you to put more produce in each jar than if you were to raw pack. When putting your ring on your lid, you just want to tighten until fingertip tight using your fingertips. You don't want to bear down using your whole palm, as this can result in the ring getting too tight, which can cause the lid to collapse, or you can lose water out of the jar, and it could result in the jar being very difficult to open once the canning process is finished. So now we have our jars ready, our rings on, we have our water heated up inside our pressure canner to 180 degrees, so we're ready to place our jars inside the canner. Now that we have our canner loaded up with our jars, we're ready to place our lid on. So we have our lid placed on, and we're waiting now for the heat and steam to build up inside the pressure canner, and we're waiting until we have a nice flow of steam coming out of this vent port. Once we achieve that flow of steam, we are going to time it for 10 minutes. This allows for the cold air to come out of the pressure canner and for the canner to build up with steam. If you're canning on a smooth stovetop like mine, it's really important to call the manufacturer of your stove. I called the manufacturer of my stove about being able to can on the smooth stovetop, and luckily I am fine to can on it as long as the diameter of my pressure canner is not more than 4 inches wider than the heating element it is on. The other thing about canning on a smooth stovetop is that you don't want to drag your pressure canner across it. If you're going to move your pressure canner, you need to lift and move it to the side and then place it down. If you were to drag your canner across it, this could result in scratching or breaking the glass. Now we have a steady flow of steam coming out of our vent port, so we're going to go ahead and set our timer for 10 minutes and let the steam flow out to get that cold air out of the pressure canner. Now that we have let the pressure canner steam out for 10 minutes, we're ready to put our weight on. So what you want to do is grab the appropriate weight that you need, hold it with a pot holder, and then you go ahead and push it on to the vent port quickly so you don't burn your fingers. We know that our pressure canner has come up to the appropriate pounds of pressure when the weight on top of the vent port starts to jiggle or dance on the lid. However, we don't want too much jiggle, as this would result in overprocessing our food. So once we start to see the jiggle of the weight, we're going to start slowly turning down our heating element. And what we want to see here is a jiggle of about 1 to 4 times per minute. Once you've achieved that, you just want to be able to maintain the 1 to 4 jiggles per minute for the duration of your recipe. Once we have reached the appropriate amount of processing time according to our recipe, we can turn off our burner. Here you have the choice to either leave your canner on the heating element if you don't feel like moving it, as it can be heavy and it is hot, or you can lift and remove it to a cool burner. However, it's very important not to speed up the depressurizing process, as this is included in the sterilization value of the food. One way to test to see if your pressure canner has come down from pressure is to just move the weight to the side and see if there's steam that you'll be able to see and hear come out of the weight. So you'll want to use a hot pad holder so you don't burn your fingers, and we're just going to nudge it to the side. So there you can hear and see steam coming out of that vent port, so you know that you still have to allow time for your pressure canner to depressurize. So I'm going to go ahead and check our weight again. So you just nudge it, and I don't hear any steam trying to escape. So I'm going to take the weight off of the pressure canner, and there's no steam or air coming out of the vent port, which means the pressure canner has come down from pressure, and we're actually going to let the pressure canner sit for 10 minutes with the lid on to help naturally cool down the jars. After the 10 minutes is up, we can take off of our lid, and then we are going to let the jars sit inside of the pressure canner with the lid off for 5 minutes. After the 5 minutes, we can remove the jars from the pressure canner and set them on a dish towel on the counter to rest for 12 to 24 hours. Thank you for watching my video on how to pressure can. I hope this makes you feel more confident in your pressure canning abilities.